I'm going to do a little experiment with a sweet potato. I'm going to plant it in the round. Hey, it's Elise. I'm glad you stopped by. And I'm doing a few things that's not necessarily what you're told to do on how to plant sweet potatoes. But hey, it's an experiment. I'm going to try it anyway. I'm planting this in a kiddie pool. The kiddie pool is not the recommended desired depth. The recommended desired depth is 18 to 24 inches deep. This one is not that deep. But I don't want huge, gargantuan sweet potatoes. I want small to medium sweet potatoes. And I'm just hoping that since I put them in here, maybe they'll just grow out a little more horizontally. Plus, it's just an experiment to see how they will grow off the vine in the round. Okay, the kiddie pool. What I have in here is composted materials, and let me explain that just a little bit. We call this composting in place. Oh, a month or 2 months back, we put some soil in here. We put a layer of chop and drop greenery. We put some more soil, and we put another layer of chop and drop greenery. And I did make a video. I'm having trouble with the quality. If I can get it fixed, I'll post it. We call it composting in place, or you can call it layer composting, or whatever you want to call it. You can use any type of container. It works very, very well. Sometimes we just use 5-gallon buckets. We put soil, we put chop and drop, we put soil, and we just set it aside. And when all that chop and drop breaks down, you mix your soil up, you've got this fantastic composted soil, all natural. Okay, so that's the soil that's in here. Next, I have this little potato, and a sweet potato, and I showed it to you in the other video on how to make your potato slips. And what I'm going to do is just try to come in and slip my hands under this whole thing. And as I showed you before, it actually has started growing sweet potatoes. Neat. Okay, I'll be right back. Well, I got my sweet potato in the container. The first thing I did was I scooted the soil back, and I made a depression about equal with the white container. That way I could take both hands, go in, scoot down, hopefully take it all out in one piece and just sit it down in the ground. And that's what I did, and it did work. And then I came back in and I made sure there was soil up around the slips, that the little potato was firm, and I covered up those sweet potatoes that were already growing. Then I just took the vine and I started looping it around a little bit. And some of the vines I've already covered the joint, and I'll come back and cover more. I was just giving the vine time to relax some. But already looks very healthy. All the little leaves are standing up. Although this container isn't the recommended depth of the 18 to 20 or 24 inches deep, I still should get some small sweet potatoes, and this one I want is small to medium sweet potatoes. Even if I don't get any sweet potatoes, I'm still going to have a really pretty container of sweet potato leaves. And remember, you can eat sweet potato leaves. Neat, huh? Lots of fun. Great project. Don't ever be afraid to experiment. And it doesn't matter if you're a backyard grower, a hobby grower, if you have a small farm or small homestead, go ahead and experiment. Now, I call this potatoes in the round, but it's just because the kiddie pool is in the round, and I'm going to wrap the vines in the round. But you don't have to do that. You can plant your vines in any container. You can plant them in the soil. You can plant your vines and just run them out in a straight line. As long as you somehow have the joints touching the soil so it can make roots, and since sweet potatoes grow in the roots, your chances are really good of getting sweet potatoes. That's how easy it is. If you have some small sweet potatoes and you want to experiment with just planting the whole sweet potato, go ahead. It will grow some slips. You won't get as many sweet potatoes as you would if you grew 4 or 5 slips off that same little sweet potato and planted each slip out. But you can also take that little sweet potato, grow a vine out, and do the same thing. Neat, huh? I had a great auntie. She would go out and just bury sweet potatoes in between plants, trees, it didn't matter. The vines would just take off. When the vines died back, she went out and she dug up what sweet potatoes she could. You can tell when it's ready to harvest, all these vines are going to die back, and then you can harvest your sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes do need to be cured a little bit, which is something as simple as just laying them on the soil next to where you dug them up and leaving them alone for a little while. If you're going to store them for any length of time, then you have to pay a little bit more attention to your weather and your humidity. I don't anticipate having lots of sweet potatoes that I'm going to have to store. What I'm growing them for is just to have some fresh sweet potatoes and for the enjoyment. Now, I want to talk to you just a moment about Dr. George Washington Carver. He was a brilliant teacher, professor, humanitarian, researcher, experimenter, and you might recognize his name more connected with peanuts because he wrote copious amounts about peanuts. Now, no, he did not invent peanuts. The Incas started cultivating peanuts thousands of years ago. But what Dr. Carver did was enough research on the peanut that he brought that into the current day economic situation, made peanuts easier to grow, made them a viable crop. He's also responsible for teaching crop rotation. So we owe Dr. Carver a lot. He also wrote about sweet potatoes. And the other day I was perusing the internet because I like to go back and try to find any information I can about how they grew things back in the old days. I found a bulletin, they called it a bulletin, that Dr. Carver had written in 1910. 24 pages on sweet potatoes. Talks a little bit about sweet potatoes. Now, I'm just paraphrasing here and just hitting some of the highlights. But some of the things that he talked about was how to plow your ground up and prepare it, how to add amendments. And remember, this was 1910, a little different. The control of weeds. A little about diseases. Lots of nice, neat, old-fashioned recipes. He also talked that he thought a small to medium-sized sweet potato was much, much better to use as a seed sweet potato to grow your slips out. Also, one of the first things he mentions is, it was, and again, I'm paraphrasing, it was concluded that growing sweet potatoes from vines was a really good thing. Then later tests came up and they decided that, well, growing them from vines and growing sweet potatoes from slips were about equal. There's all this great information. I've already read it twice. I'll put the URL down in the description. And the title is something like The Possibility of Sweet Potatoes in Macon County, Alabama. Neat. Check it out if you can. All right, that's it. We'll come back and visit these. And until we do, have a fantastic day.